Hey all, we're back. If you didn't follow my last video, basically what I'm trying to do is build a calorie budgeting app that I actually like. Budgeting calories has been a really great way for me to lose weight in the past year, but I wasn't happy with any of the tracking solutions out there. And I started thinking to myself, okay, I don't have the time to fully develop and fully deploy this app right now. What is something that I can get going right away to help me track calories? I think this is really common. We often get lost in the app creation process and we kind of lose the thread of what we're trying to do. The idea that I went with was creating a ChatGPT applet. So I'm going to walk you through the applet that I created, and there will be a link in the description in case you want to use it. So let's go ahead and just say new day and click enter. We're looking at how this would look on your phone. And we're waiting for it to respond. Okay, and it's saying basically, hey, we need to know what your daily calorie budget is. So let's go ahead and enter that, 1,700 calories. It does not do the calculations for you, but we'll go ahead and get started with 1,700. That's what I typically use. And one of the things that I put into it was, sometimes you want to track protein or fat intake as well. We're going to ignore that for now, but it's there if you want to do it. So let's just say no. Okay, now let's pretend like I just had a cup of coffee, and that cup of coffee with skim milk was around 35 calories. And let's just say that I did that by looking on the labels. Coffee and skim milk. And what I love about this is that I don't have to be super detailed. I don't have to fill in multiple fields. I can just say what it was and it automatically updates. You can see 1665 calories is what I have left. And this green dot, they're supposed to say 1665 next to this green dot. Sometimes this stuff gets lost. Sometimes it doesn't work 100% of the way, but it's still a great solution to be able to type in simple things like 35 calories coffee and skim milk and for it to do that. Now, let's say that I just had some food, but I don't know how many calories it is, or I don't have the energy to look it up. So let's just say I had, let's just say I went out with some friends and I had, 6 chicken wings with ranch sauce. Well, I guess it's not ranch sauce. It's just ranch and 2, I don't know, PBRs. I like to go out after volleyball with my team, and sometimes that's exactly what I have. And this is totally different from the approach I had last time, where you had to really dig in and manage your calories by detail and sort of manage your meals by detail. This figures out a lot of it for you. What's a more accurate calculation it could probably do? Let's just say, and let's see what it does here. And one of the things we can do is say, where did you get this information? Let's see if it tells us that. Sometimes it's super accurate with this information, and sometimes it's not. So widely available nutritional data. So they got it directly from McDonald's. That's great. Okay. Now, if you remember from my last video, if you watched it, the idea of calorie budgeting is that when you eat something, you spend calories, and when you do exercise, you deposit calories. So let's just say I went on a 20-minute run for 2 miles, and let's see if ChatGPT can calculate that, and let's see if it adds it to the budget. It should. So it uses 250 calories. That's fairly accurate with the measurements that I've done with the apps I use. So 365 calories remaining for the day now. That's up from 115. So you can see it does the basic math of subtracting calories when you eat something and adding calories when you exercise. I mentioned earlier that you can also track protein and fat in here. You could probably also ask it to track your carbs or your sodium. Right now, I'm just focusing on calories because that's the main purpose of this, but it's pretty powerful, and that's something that the original app doesn't do. It doesn't let you be flexible and track anything you want. You're really just stuck with calories. That demo was really fast, but I like videos that are fast. I think we covered the most important things. Let's talk about some advantages and disadvantages to this approach. First of all, I think conversational UI is the way to go. The big difference maker for me was that you could put in loose inputs and you didn't have to be so detailed and click multiple fields in order to manage your meals. You could literally just type in using human language and it would figure it out for you. I think this is the number one advantage to this, and the thing that made the biggest impact between the ChatGPT version and the original version that I had created. The second big advantage is that it can do calculations for you. So you can put in a run or a meal you had, and it can give you an estimate back. So if you don't have that information or you just don't have the energy to go look it up, you at least get something in. And I think that for a lot of people, consistency is going to be the hard thing. And looking on labels can really pull you out of that process. It can take a lot of mental effort to go figure out how many calories are in a cup of skim milk. A lot of times servings really don't make sense. I have a frozen pizza in my freezer that says it's like calculated based on 5 servings, and nobody cuts a pizza up into 5 servings. It's 4 or 8 or something even. So the fact that they use 5 servings is a little ridiculous. And this app can help you figure that out a little bit easier, which I think is a huge advantage. Of course, the more information you can give it, the better. So that's why I think looking up things like Big Mac are really great, because it has specific calories available on McDonald's.com. So anytime you can give it more data, the better, but it doesn't need it. The third big advantage of this conversational UI of the app is that it's adaptable. So if you want to track your proteins, your fats, your carbs, your sodiums, it can do that. You just have to ask it to do that. It doesn't do it perfectly. It doesn't really do anything perfectly, but the fact that it's adaptable to your needs is a huge advantage, in my opinion. Okay, let's talk about some disadvantages of this approach. So number one is that you can accidentally overwrite your information if you're on one browser and you hop over to another and then back and you don't refresh. I've messed up an entire day worth of tracking that way, which is, it's not the worst thing in the world. You kind of learn to deal with it. But for an app that was packaged, that would never fly. Second disadvantage, it's just really hard to train this app to do things exactly how I want them to. I mentioned before that this green dot here, for me, it lists the number of calories that I have left next to the green dot. And that's a really helpful visual indicator, but it's not doing it here. I don't know why. This is a new app that I spun up for the specific demo, and it's not doing it here. It also is very inconsistent. If I try to track other things like protein, it won't tell me what that is most of the time. I have to specifically ask it to update me on that. It'll only update me on calories, which I find a bit frustrating. It's also a lot more verbose than I personally would like. Some people like the motivational language, some people don't. Some people like explanations, some people don't. I would just rather it show me like a one-line sentence covering some simple math and not really over-explain what it's doing like it does. I've asked my version to be less verbose. It's still really verbose. So I wish there was the ability to really control that. And I think this is probably the last disadvantage that I can think of, but it's often very inaccurate. So I put in Maki rolls one time and the numbers were just way off. They just didn't even make sense. And something like that, I would just expect it to get closer. I think part of the problem is just that it uses a large language model. I'm really curious about small language models, which to my understanding is basically where you train something on a more specific set of data. I don't know which one I would want to use in the end, but the idea that I would train it to be a bit more specific and more educated on calorie counting, on food budgeting, on exercises, I think would go a long way towards making it more useful. I can picture an ecosystem where a group of people use this, and if they all give permission to share the data, it could get trained as it has more data to work with that's really specific to the task that it needs to do. Thanks for watching, and let me know your thoughts in the comments.